thought of cutting my thumb off even coming to my head. Not me personally, but I thought to myself, I wondered if I could get my thumb cut off so it won't hurt when I'm punching. Desperation was there to compete. I always had my own doubts, you know. There was times where I thought, I might get found out soon here. Depression, it should have been a happy time as well, you know. My kids were babies, you know, everything was good at home with me missus. I just bought a new house that we were moving into, but my heart was broken.
Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Getting Back Up with me, Anthony Ogogo. And as I'm sure you're aware by now, in this podcast I talk to wonderful people that have done great things in both their life and or career, but only after or amidst suffering massive setback and adversity. This is your weekly dose of hope and inspiration. And like every week, I've got a very special guest on this week. Last week we had Tony Jeffries, a British bronze medal winning boxer, and this week we have another British bronze medal winning boxer, big man David Price. David Price has got an extraordinary story. He won pretty much everything, almost everything in his glittering boxing career. 3-time super heavyweight champion in the amateurs, an Olympic Games bronze medalist. He won medals all around the world whilst donning the GB tracksuit. In the professional ranks, David Price won the British heavyweight title, the Commonwealth heavyweight title, and many experts thought that David Price would be the man to take the mantle from the Klitschko's and own the heavyweight division for 10 years. It wasn't quite to be. Unfortunately, David Price suffered back-to-back losses at the hands of Tony Thompson, who later turned out to fail a drugs test. Now that was a very, very, very difficult thing for David Price and his family and his boxing team to go through, and he talks all about it in this fantastic interview. So guys, sit back and listen to this great man talk about his even greater story. Without further ado, let's get stuck in. So mate, I am humbled to have you today. I've known you for a long time. And you've just recently retired from boxing after 20 years in the game. So firstly, mate, I want to shake your hand and welcome you to the Old Man's Club, the Retired Boxers Club. Mate, how do you feel?
Do you know what, Ant? It feels a relief for me. After 2 years of uncertainty of 1 foot in and 1 foot out of the door, the not knowing was the painful bit for me. And then when I took the decision to actually retire, a weight lifted. And it's done now, and it's just kind of like on to the next chapter of my life. So it feels good, mate. Yeah, it feels good.
You look great. You look really
Thank you,
well.
mate. Yeah, trying to keep in shape. Yeah. Just trying to carry on that what's instilled into me. You know, training's been part of our lives for that long. We've got to keep doing it to a degree, only not professionally like you still are. But I'll just keep it just to keep fit and just to keep myself in a bit of a respectable shape. So just for the enjoyment more than anything.
And you look really well, mate. You look really content. You sound content. And something I'm really impressed with from you, like not many boxers, and even fewer heavyweights, not many get to leave the sport with a belt on the mantelpiece, with money in the bank account, with a new career, like a business. I've heard you say you've got investments. Mate, you've done so well. And on top of that, mate, you've got the universal respect from all your peers, all the pundits, all the boxing writers, and for that, mate, honestly, I take my hat off to you because that's very seldom done.
And that's humbling to hear that from yourself, to be honest with you, because you are one of those said peers, and that's the greatest accolade you can get in sport. I think is your fellow athletes, fellow fighters, or whatever else they're doing, acknowledging their respect towards you for whatever reason it may be. Whether they respect your ability, they respect you as a man or a woman. That's the ultimate accolade you can get in sport. And if you're telling me that's what's what, then that is a very it's very humbling for me.
No, thank you, mate. No, and it is. I mean, like, you've always been very honest with your interviews and with your personality. We've got loads of parallels in our career, and it's been a pleasure for me because since I hurt my eye 5 years ago, I've buried my head in the sand. I haven't watched boxing. I've been, really bitter about it, and I missed a little bit the end of your career. I missed it because I wasn't watching. It's been great for me. Firstly, as half a mate, somebody who knows you for a long, long time, but also as a boxing fan. This last week, to watch your fights, watch your old fights against people like Sam Sexton and Matt Skelton, and to watch the stuff against Bobek and the guys that I missed. Mate, what a career!
It was. It was a journey. The irony in my boxing career was that the most successful time came at the end when I probably lost half of my fights. But as far as success came in what I came into the sport for was for the business reasons and financial reasons. I got me just desserts at the end, and that was only because I persevered. And a lot of people told me to stop, and I didn't. I just kept going because I knew I had to keep going, and in the end, I got what I kept going for. So, that was a satisfying end to the career for me. That's why I've got no bitterness about it. I've got no bitterness about boxing, and I feel for you because yours was taken away cruelly, but I went out on my own terms. I was still getting offered fights for decent wages and everything else, and I went, you know what? I'm not going to do it anymore, and so that was on my own terms. Even if it weren't like I've gone on a win and with a belt, there was still something on the table, and I walked away.
There's a great quote from Nelson Mandela: "Don't judge me by my successes, judge me by the times I fell down and got back up again." And then both of our careers, we've both fallen down or more happily put, been knocked down over and over again, but we've always got back up. So, right, let's dive in. So, growing up in Liverpool in the 80s, was it all perms and moustaches, like we're led to believe from the old Harry and Paul sketches, or what was it like growing up as a kid?
Do you know where I lived as a kid? It was like a stone's throw away from Anfield, Liverpool's football ground. So I lived in like a bit of a deprived area of the city. But it weren't like Toxteth riots areas, weren't that bad. But it was one of the lesser areas, and it was a great upbringing though. It was a 2 up, 2 down terraced house, my mum and dad. And then
brothers and sisters, or
my brother and sisters. My sister Rachel, my eldest sister, mum and dad, eldest sister. And then we moved to a more affluent area of the city, which was West Derby, in 1991 when I was 8. So that was a nicer area. Moved, changed schools, and like I often wondered in the past what my life would have shaped to be if I'd have stayed in the same area I lived in, because I got a bit of a tough time getting bullied by kids who were always massive for my size and for my age and things like that. So I was an easy target, and I often wondered if I would have even went into a boxing gym or what path my life would have took. And every little decision we're making second to second is going to lead us to our eventual
the butterfly effect,
right?
It's
like the butterfly effect, isn't it? So that's something I've thought about in the past. You wouldn't have met the same people, and everyone's in the same boat with that. But I wonder what it would have turned out like. But it was growing up in this city, great, really. I wouldn't have wanted to live anywhere else. We're all proud of where we're from, but Liverpool has a particular pride about it. We're kind of in our own bubble in Liverpool. And this city hasn't had things easy with the actual government and things like that. So we've got like a staunch way, like a bit of
bit of chip on your shoulder.
Bit of a chip on the shoulder, yeah. Bit of a defiance about us, and that's just instilled in the city. But for me, I had a great upbringing here. Loved the city.
So you were, and I pride myself on this as well. I like to think I'm a tough person, both like physically, emotionally, and you are as well, mate. Like just watching your fights again this week, like you're so tough, and I'm a firm believer of like who we are as adults. It's like largely shaped of who we are as a kid, and things happen to us. And my mum raised me and my sisters on her own, single parent, 5 kids, worked her ass off, and she's so tough. And her toughness, I think, kind of filtered down to me. So what happened in your life, in your childhood, if anything, to make you the tough bloke that you are?
I can't pinpoint any one particular thing. Obviously, when I was a kid, when I first started boxing, a lot of people couldn't believe it because of my nature, because I'm I'm a bit of a gentle giant, if I may say so myself. So a lot of people, when I started boxing, were like, you won't last in boxing. But I always felt I had a point to prove, and I always thought because of my size, I couldn't just be this size and not be something. I had to go and do something, and I wanted to prove to myself that I could fight and look after myself. And
so was you proving it to yourself?
I was proving it to myself always, yeah. You know, and my dad was quite a bit. He probably wouldn't mind me saying he's a bit of a hothead. My dad, you know, always has been. Got a different personality to me. He's quite short-tempered, and he's a bit of a hothead compared to me. And when he was younger, you know, he could have a bit of a scrap as well. So I probably felt I had to live up to my dad a little bit without realising it at the time, but. Just trying to think out loud here, and that's probably something that came in. My dad and my granddad loved the boxing, and boxing was something that, you know, it wasn't as popular as it is now, especially amongst young kids. So if you went into a boxing gym, now young lads, boxing's kind of 10 a penny, which is great, which is what we all want and always have wanted. But when I was younger, it was a little bit different if you went boxing, and I went into that, and I just got hooked on it, and you know, a few little skirmishes outside of the ring and things like that, especially when you get to the age where the hormones start kicking in, the testosterone starts coming in, and you want to be the alpha male a little bit, and it's human nature, and that's what I had in me. And as you get older, that kind of subsides, you know, especially as you go past your mid-30s. I'm feeling it subsiding a bit now. You just chilled now.
Yeah.
You know.
And you've got nothing left to prove because you've done it all.
Yeah, it's different for me. I think going back to the chip on the shoulder, I've had that many different people. I've had something to say about my size over the years. And when I was younger, I was quite insecure about my height. I didn't like being this tall because it was too noticeable. And I got too many things said about it, and it just used to bug me. And when I was younger, I let it bother me. And if I hadn't have been, what I was, the boxer who I knew I could look after myself, I probably would have ended up fighting with a lot of people. But because I had that inner confidence, and
discipline, I guess.
Discipline, yeah. So it's like they are Bruce Lee saying, was he say you do. Or it might even be off Cobra Kai or something like that. You learn karate so you don't have to use it.
Yeah.
And it's the same with boxing. You know inside that you can use that, and it's like a quiet confidence. So without that, I probably would have been end up in a lot more skirmishes and trouble outside of boxing if it weren't there. But that toughness thing, probably just it's been developed over the years. That definitely developed, because it is in you to a degree. But you think back to them joint training camps, for instance, that we used to go on with Kazakhstans and Russia and this, that, and the other, in the middle of nowhere, where the food was terrible, the whole place was just
proper shit,
wasn't
proper
it?
Shit.
Wasn't it? It was like the old Eastern Bloc, and it was. But
it instills toughness, right, and the resilience.
And we were fighting every day with them, and them spars were like fights with 10
little bag out scrums on, no padding in.
That was tough, man. And the likes of that's ingrained in me now. That'll be ingrained in you, And I always like to use perspective in life. So if I come across a challenge in my life, or something that a bit of adversity in something emotionally or physically, I've always got that to refer back to. Well, maybe not them camps, something that's happened in my boxing career, or where I felt nervous before a fight, and I've gone, wow, no, this isn't nerves, that was nerves. Let's use perspective to ease this situation. So I'm a believer in that as well.
I always say that boxing is a snapshot of life. Like the things that we go through in a boxing match or career is mirrored exactly in life. No, the good, and we're going to come on to your good times. Good times, there's bad times, and it's about how when you get knocked down in life and in boxing, like it's what you do in those moments. They define you, right? Like when you're like lying down, looking up at the lights, and you want to stay down, and the referee's counting you out. It's like if you just find something to get the fuck up and fight on, that defines who you are. It's not necessarily the belt or the winning stuff. It's the tough times. So as a kid, as a boxer, what did you enjoy about it? Like, was it the like respect you got around town? Were you already as a kid thinking about like the money that you could earn in the future?
No, never entered my head. I never ever thought about professional boxing until
something we have in common. Something something that's very seldom in GB boxers.
Yeah.
Like I've listened to your interviews. Like all I cared about was the Olympic Games.
The Olympics, yeah, that was it. Yeah,
had I won a gold medal, there's a very good chance I'd have just retired.
Really?
Because I wasn't fussed about the pros.
Yeah.
I did the pros because my mum was very ill during the Olympics, and I just couldn't do another 4-year cycle.
Yeah.
And then have all the memories come back.
Yeah.
So I needed to just move on.
Yeah.
But so for you as a kid, it was what was it, the respect?
It was definitely that. It was definitely the respect. The respect was probably the number one reason why I kept doing it and going and trying to achieve more, because I was enjoying the newfound respect I was given, you know, and it weren't fear. It was just people respected you a little bit more, and I loved it. I loved that feeling, and then that went from respect to admiration as well. And as I started progressing, and that's a great feeling, you know. We've all got egos. That's a great feeling, mate, and that was one of the main things. And I also loved at first, not so much later on, but I loved getting into the nitty gritty, because getting hit was a new thing for me. And I'd done boxing a little bit when I was a younger man. I was a kid, 11, and I didn't like getting hit in the face, and I'd cry and to get out the ring crying, all I was sparring older lads, and I hated myself for it, because I was embarrassed that I didn't last, and I left the gym, and I always said to myself, I've got to go back and prove to myself that I can at least get punched in the face. But I was a baby. Do you know what I mean? In hindsight, you know, that was okay, but in my head it wasn't. So when I went back when I was 14, I started getting roughed up a little bit in the spars, and I was like, hang on, I can deal with this. And that was a great feeling. But, you know, you took some beatings when you first started boxing. You took them. Mate,
I was
rite of passage, you know.
Yeah, you've got to learn. So I was going to ask you. Next question was like, so when did you realize that like I could do this? I could actually do this, because I had no idea I was any good, honestly. Because I started when I was 12, and I sparred the 14, 15, 16-year-olds. When I was 13, I sparred right, the prick. He was 29 years old. He was a copper, right? And I was quite big for it, not as big as you, but I was quite a big kid. So he thought I was like 15, 16. And he leathered me around the ring every night, smashed me around the ring every single night. And I'd go home, like bleed a nose, I'd go back. And my coach said to me that he knew I was going to be good then, because I'll take a patience from a grown man and come back. And then that says all, right? It speaks volumes even. And when I eventually and the gap was getting like smaller and smaller, then when I got better at him, he buggered off. He didn't come back anymore.
Yeah, stole the glory from me, took it away. So
I didn't know I was any good, because I'd always like lose sparring sessions against guys that are bigger and better than me. And then it sounds silly as it may sound, when I was 15, we went to the Junior Olympics in Brownsville, Texas. And then me and Lou Campbell, the only two guys on the whole squad to win the gold medal. And I won the best boxer tournament, the most outstanding boxer tournament, right? And for me, there's a moment of clarity. We're on the aeroplane coming back, British Airways flight, and the captain said a big congratulations to Anthony Ogogo and Luke Campbell, just won the Junior Olympics, and the whole airplane applauded, right? And that was the moment I thought, I'm going to do this forever. This is what I want to do. Up at that point, I was training like twice a week in the occasional England squad at Crystal Palace. But that was the moment I thought, this is where I've got to live. I want the applause all the time. And so for yourself, was there like a definite moment you thought, this is me? Or was it like a gradual process?
It was a gradual process, but I think once I started getting invited to the England camps in Crystal Palace, so I'd only had a handful of fights at this time, but they took me in because of my size, and there was not really much competition, but also they recognised that I had talent. And it was as soon as I went on them, and it was a baptism of fire, by the way. Do you ever remember the blisters on your feet after your first Crystal Palace weekend? You couldn't walk, could you? And that was
training that's 4 sessions a day, wasn't it?
4 sessions a day, and I got battered by some middleweight from Sheffield. And I never heard him after it, but he battered me. And then I got out the ring, and they were like, skip 4 rounds, and I couldn't even skip. Every time I was trying to skip, the rope was at my foot, and I was like, oh, this is all gone Pete Song. He had my first England camp, and that was in the January. And I come home feeling disheartened. My body was in bits, and I was like, wow, I don't think I can do that. But then the next day was, come home on the Sunday, the next day was Monday, and it was back to my own club, and I got up and went, and then I was like, I can't wait to go back there and do that again. And then it was at that point, it was then I started seeing, this was before, might have just been, this was before the Sydney Olympics, so I didn't even know much about Olympic boxing. But then I started following the Olympics, followed Audley Harrison, and for me, Audley Harrison was like a bit of a big inspiration for me, a big inspiration for what he'd done in the Olympics. And that was when the Olympics became a thing in my head. It was like everything, the Olympian tag, and you know, such a rare thing in this world is an Olympian, and that for me was like, that's what I need to get to, and then only then will I think about anything else, because that was like tunnel vision for that.
Do you remember the first piece of adversity like you faced as a boxer, or in life in general, really?
What are you talking about by
in terms of like setback, because I presume you started boxing, and I presume you were good. You got picked up by the England squad.
Yeah.
And what was the first time you thought, fuck, you started to question things?
Okay, yeah. So one of the times was I had my sixth fight in the Northeast against a lad called David Pendleton. I don't know whether you remember him. David Pendleton, he got called David Passmore as well. He won an ABA title eventually, and I'd beat him in my fifth fight. And then the next time we had a return. He was a good boxer, and it was a cauldron where I fought him. Anyway, he won the fight on points, close fight. Probably should have given it to him, truth be told, but I hurt my thumb in the last round, and my thumb was destroyed for like nearly 18 months, and I couldn't use my right hand properly, and I thought I was never ever going to get better.
How old were you
this was 17, and I'd already been on an England camp, so I'd had the taste for what I wanted to go for, and this was bad. We just couldn't get it figured out, and it's never been the same since, to be honest. The thumb's like stuck in that position. I can't bend it, but it eventually put it in a splint, and I had to play a waiting game to see what was going to happen. Now, at this stage, and obviously from this stage, I should say, boxing was everything to me, because it was giving me my identity.
Of course,
it was
you were David Price, the boxer.
I was the boxer now, and it was giving me the identity. It was giving me this respect and admiration. My family were proud as anything, because I'd got onto an England camp, and I'd surprised them all. None of them could see it coming. So they were all surprised pleasantly. And then all of a sudden, this was potentially going to be taken away. And I went to, I went down to an England camp later, like 6 months later, and it was in a splint. And I was just using my left hand, and I thought, I'm never going to be able to use this right hand again. But the thought of cutting my thumb off even coming to my head. Not me personally, but I thought to myself, I wondered if I could get my thumb cut off, so it won't hurt when I'm punching. Yeah. That was how desperate I was.
Yeah, mate, I've been there.
You know, you have. You know, so I forgot about that until I've just been talking. Then, you know, that's how much desperation was there to compete and succeed. You know, that was the first little bit, but there was plenty more, obviously. But that was the first one of memory in boxing. Yeah.
And at that point, you were so dealt in, the thought of quitting and giving up didn't even come in your head. You'd rather cut your thumb off to box, than give up and do.
That was it. Yeah.
So for me, my first was I boxed Joe Selkirk in the ABAs.
I was there.
Yeah, I remember. Mate, that whole thing. Yeah. That rocked me, mate. That honestly, like looking back now, that set me back years.
Yeah, you were seconds away from winning as well, weren't you?
But I got punched in the back of the head.
Okay.
Punched me in the back of the head. Okay. And that's the thing that for me, I held the whole bitterness of it all. Like I boxed him, and nobody really gave me a chance. I was 17. Yeah. I was going to become the youngest welterweight to win the ABAs.
Was you 17 in the senior ABAs?
So I think they changed the rules to let Amir Khan go to the Olympics.
Yeah.
Changed from was it 19 to 17, I think, and I was literally just turned 17.
So that was your cue to get in, then,
mate, that's my thing. I'd honestly, listen, ifs, buts, maybes, who knows what would have happened. I genuinely believe that so I boxed Selkirk, and I think the final score, he stopped me with a second to go. Right? Yeah. And what happened is, I think I was 6 points up or 7 points up, going after round. I think I was 9-0 up. Right?
Yeah.
I was winning. I was boxing his ears off. I boxed so well, and it's, as you know, Selkirk, really talented boxer.
Yeah.
Could blow hot and cold, but like really talented. Had a big punch.
Big puncher, yeah.
Huge punch. I think he was 21, 22. I was 17. And then boxing his ears off. I boxed so well, and that was my world title fight. If I beat him, I win the ABAs.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And then at the end of round 3, it's 4-2s back then. He threw me to the floor. And he's cracked me on the back of the head with his backhand. And I'm on my hands and knees. And I was gone, mate. I was gone. That was the first time I was concussed in my entire life.
Yeah.
And then I went, staggered to the corner. Don't know how I got up. And I was boxing off pure instincts. And my coach said to me that he was sure that the referee was going to disqualify him.
Yeah.
And then he didn't. I'm boxing. I don't remember anything. I remember we drove home that night. I remember about 4 hours later, I'm in the car. And I'm shivering. I have no recollection of anything after that. And then, he hit me in the back of the head. And then the final score would have been 11-3. That's what the score was when he stopped me with like 3 seconds to go. And then 2 points were a public warning because I was holding, so I didn't know what was going on. And he hit me once, and they said he hit me. Said he dropped me 3 times. One was a blatant push. Anyway. Listen, I'm not, it was 2006. It was a long time ago, right? I haven't quite, as you can tell, I haven't quite let it go. But the thing is, like, I got stopped in a boxing match, and I was boxing so well. Had that not happened, I think I would have went on to Beijing, and that affected me so badly that, like, I regressed by a couple of years. And I had this thing where, like, because I'd been stopped, right? No matter how, and I'd been concussed and punched in the back of the head. Up until that fight, I'd never been hurt before. In a sparring session, in a fight. After that, it was a pure mental thing. Every time I got hit with a jab, even with a jab, I'd like, my legs would wobble. That was all mental. And then I did this weird thing where, like, and I don't know if this happened to yourself as well, like later on in your career, but like, I'd be too scared to close the distance. So I'd throw punches from too far out, then of course miss, then get whacked. So I think if I get too close, I'm going to get hit. So I'm going to punch from too far away. I miss, I'm going to get hit anyway.
It's like gun shy, innit?
And I got gun shy.
Yeah.
And had you ever felt that in your career? Or
I did. Yeah, I think I did after the first Tony Thompson fight because everything was falling over, and after that, in the build up to the second fight, I got dropped again in sparring, and I was questioning my punch resistance, and my head fell off a little bit, and the same commitment just weren't there. Although I still had some knockout victories after it, I did that belief weren't there, and a bit of apprehension setting. And it only takes one little minor bit of apprehension and tentativeness, and if that tension comes in, the punch power decreases dramatically, doesn't it? And the flow just goes. You're not in a flow state, are you? So I definitely did have that, I think, after
So I struggled for a while, as I said. I got it back, but it took me 18 months to 2 years. But which point Beijing had gone, and I listened to some of your interviews. You said like later on in your career, you started seeing a sports psychologist.
Yeah.
Did you not think about seeing somebody, like, what are your feelings of with counselling or therapy? Did you not think about like maybe employing somebody at that point in your career?
No, because my pride wouldn't let me, because I seen it as a weakness, and it was a foolish thing to think. And an immature thing to think, but as I got older, I mean, I did after the second Tony Thompson fight. I worked with a fella called Terry McElhinney, who was like an NLP specialist, and he was good. But then after a while, I thought, I don't need him anymore. I'm sound. And then I got knocked out for a European title fight. Done work with another fella called Brian McCready. Again, good. But then the ego started telling me, you don't need this. It looks bad. It looks weak. So then the very last one I used was a guy from America, and at that point I was completely open to this at this stage, and he was really good, and I wish I would have used him after the Olympics, beyond. But it's just your mind when you're younger, your maturity is a little bit different.
And like you said, growing up in this city, and I've loved Liverpool for years. I've got a funny thing with Liverpool because, like, on one hand, I won the Worlds here in 2005, the World Cadets under 17.
That long ago,
2005 became well, and nobody. I could die tomorrow. I could live to 120 years old. Nobody can take away that World Cadet Championship.
World champion, yeah.
that was here, St George's Hall, and there's an amazing. Then the very next year, the Selkirk thing happened, and then like I've had a funny relationship with Liverpool for years and years. But like you said earlier, like being from this city, you have got a sense of pride. It's like a big chip on your shoulder. It might be even
it's
harder
a hard
for you to
city. It's a hard city. So I know what you're saying.
open to the counselling,
because
you learn to we don't need this kind of thing. You know?
and obviously as you're getting older, a lot more people are becoming open to how important mental health is, because my mental health did suffer quite a bit throughout my boxing career. Yours has, for different reasons, and same reasons as me. But what you're saying with getting over the Selkirk defeat, that in layman's terms is depression, anxiety, and it is. You know, you one of the hardest things about losing a fight is the emotional. It can be like grief. It can be like grief, you know.
Yeah, and like when I lost my career as well, I mourned my career like I'd lost, a sibling. I don't believe it. Sound dramatic,
no, believe it.
I
believe it.
Life.
Big party has been taken away. Yeah, so it's a mental health thing. So for us not to take care of that, like we take care of our bodies as an athlete, it's madness, really, isn't it? So I think it should be instilled into every young athlete to do what they can, whether it's mindfulness or whether it's speaking to someone about anything. It's become a lot more open thing to talk about now, mental health. But years ago,
and rightly so as well.
Yeah. Years ago, especially in boxing,
it's
like
macho, isn't it?
Machoism, yeah.
For me, that first piece of adversity for me was like what I struggled with, and I think I might be wrong in saying that you've had the same battle or situation with the unfairness of it all. You fought two guys that failed drugs tests. Especially for Tony Thompson one, like I cannot, I think drug cheats in boxing are the worst people, because they're not just stealing money out of your pocket, which they do, but they're potentially damaging your health. We get punched in the head. You only get one head, you only get one brain. And they're the worst people. And again, it's the if, but, maybe. And you've been very honest in interviews in the past. You said, well, if it didn't happen then, you losing Thompson, it would happen like a fight or two down the road.
Yeah, but it's besides the point.
Fight down the road, that could have been for a world title. We get paid £5 million.
Well, it probably would have been against Tyson Fury. That's what it probably would have been against. So
and it's the bitterness. Like, how do you deal with that the unfairness? That's the unfair thing.
Well, that was. The worst part was when I initially found out. Obviously, time has allowed me to digest it all and let it go.
And maturity and experience and
I've
stuff.
had to let that go. But it was a sore subject for a while. But the thing is with boxing as well, there's so many cynical people involved in boxing when it comes to opinions, and a lot of people have just the opinion, he's got beat anyway. But they don't understand the advantages someone does get from using performance-enhancing drugs in a boxing match. It's not only in the fight. It's the gains they're getting during the training camp.
Yeah, of
the
course.
recovery.
Yeah.
The how it must feel seeing the results go up through the roof. It's also then the mental side of things. They must feel like they can run through walls. And here's little old me on the creatine and the multivitamins, thinking I feel great, and then I've lost one of the fights and then doubting myself for losing the fight and not getting told about the person being on the drugs for 2 years because he was appealing it. And in that period, they weren't allowed to disclose what had happened. So if I'd have been told sooner, maybe that would have cushioned the blow a little bit and made me look at it a little bit differently and go, okay, I had reason with it, and it give me maybe reasons why it happened, help me recover from it mentally a little bit. But I just got left. So it is a sore subject, and they are scumbags. The people who do it. It's like the height of dishonesty. It really is disgusting.
I want to know, like, how did you said you let it go, and it's so much easier said than done, letting it go. I've tried to let so many things go, and I'm in a good place now, but for years I wasn't, man. I was pissed off. How did you let it go?
I don't know. I just had to move on to the next thing, I suppose. I mean, as soon as I started competing again, I could only focus on what was in front of me. There was no point thinking about that bastard done that to me, and neither of them went on to do great things. But that again, besides the point, I may well have. I mean,
you did, and you did.
Yeah,
you
but
did
it might have gone beyond.
Of course.
And it might have just been a whole lot different, but it is a bit of a cliche. It just weren't meant to be that way for me, and I'm also honest in saying, and it's not a bad thing to say, is when I can accept how good I actually was, whereas Price is going to do this, he's going to do that, I'll go look at this, and when the dust settled after all the hype and all the careers ended, and I've ended up, and it's settled, and I've ended up at that level, I'm comfortable with that. I'm okay with that, because I know I'll give everything. I couldn't have done any more, The only thing I could have done differently is maybe had a better chin, and I didn't, because I was vulnerable. I was quite fragile as far as having a great chin's concerned. But that was only to reach world level, and that's no shame in that. I won everything I did in the amateurs. I won all the British Commonwealths and all that. I was sturdy enough to do that, but just not quite at that better level. And there's no shame in that. I'm okay with that.
So I mentioned a minute ago, like, I think boxing is a snapshot of life. There's times in the boxing career when things are going really well for you, right? Like you become Midas. Everything you touch turns to gold. Every fight you win,
been there, yeah.
You're injury free. Yeah. And then, in my opinion, as a fan and as a mate, watching you from 2007 to 2008, that was one of your halcyon days.
Yeah,
you were on fire.
Yeah, I was, yeah.
You go and win a gold medal here, knock out this guy, knock out that guy, knock out that guy.
Just starting to knock people out regular then.
What was it? Was it a confidence thing?
No, I think it was a maturity thing physically. It was just starting to physically get stronger. And I was working quite a bit with Bob Dylan. You remember Bob?
Yeah, I love Bob.
He
Bob. He loved you.
Great guy, yeah. He was putting a lot of emphasis on committing me punches completely. 100% commitment through me punching, me right hand especially. And
great coach.
He got into my head, and my confidence was just growing and growing and growing. So I got to the point where I thought I only had to land the right hand and I'd knock anyone out. And I even had that belief going into the Olympic semi-final, and went into it a little bit relaxed, when really I should have been absolutely on edge, ready, adrenaline, and it weren't there. It weren't there for a couple of reasons. For that reason, one, and also because I'd had, like when you beat the Ukrainian.
You beat the Russian. Another one of our similarities, mate. Yeah. You beat the favourite, the world champion in your first fight.
That. Was that your first fight?
I fought the first day. That was my second fight. But that was my final.
Was that your medal fight?
That was I fought the Dominican the first day of competition. So the Saturday after the opening ceremony.
Yeah.
I boxed the Ukrainian, and then I had to box again. Okay. For a middle. But I know what you mean. Like, that's the World Cup final.
Yeah, and it was a bit of a struggle to get that. It was weird, and you might have heard me say in an interview, it took me 18 months. So you're talking about adversity, and when it took you 2 years to get over something, it took me till I become British champion to let go losing that Olympic semi-final the way I did, because I didn't perform, and
because you were bitter, weren't you? You were very bitter after the Olympic Games, and I shared that bitterness. Man. I was so bitter. But was you bitter at yourself?
At myself, yeah. At myself. Okay. Because I think I could have done more in the semi-final. But although I could only do what he was letting me do, though, because he was such a good fighter, and he had my number, and I think he'd have beaten me 9 times out of 10. But if ever there was a time to beat him, it was then. But I thought, only have to land this right hand. It's on the Russian in the first fight. The second fight, I hit the lad with the right hand, and his back bent back that far. Something happened to his leg, and they had to pull him out. So I was like, this right hand's just it's the kryptonite. And, it was like a double-edged sword, because it was kind of like the undoing of me. So
you put so much onus on it, because you've got it, that's your equaliser.
Yeah, I got too much onus on it. And it took a while to actually let that bitterness go. And Andy Murray put it after the London Olympics. He went to not the Olympics, the Wimbledon. Went to Wimbledon, and then he went to the French Open or the Australian Open after Wimbledon, something like that. He won Wimbledon first time. Performed poorly in the Open, wherever it was.
US Open, I think.
And I think he said the high of winning Wimbledon was that high. The coming down and getting back up was near impossible, and I could resonate with that. And I was like, I think that's what happened to me in the Olympics. Now, I think that's what separates the best, because from the rest, someone who's done that and can keep that same level of momentum, they've got something which I didn't have. Now, no loss gets any easier in boxing, no matter how many times you lose, because if you're a born winner and a sportsman at heart, nothing else matters except the result, and kill me.
So the business after the Olympic Games, and you were always going to turn pro. Actually, no, because you were so focused on the Olympic Games. So for me, as I said earlier, like my mum had a brain aneurysm just before the Olympic Games. So my Olympics were awful. I didn't train. It's the worst time of my life, actually, the Olympic Games for me. It was really difficult. And at this point, she was still in a coma. We didn't know if she was going to live or die at this point. So I had to turn pro. I was the first guy to turn pro because I just couldn't. I didn't even want to turn pro, if I'm honest. I just didn't want to just go through 3.5 years and come back to that moment and have all life flooding back. So I turned pro. So what was it about you that made you turn pro? So your focus from the Olympic gold medal to the world title? I
had enough of the amateur system at that point. Just the being in Sheffield, being away from home. I had a young family.
It's hard, isn't it? It's hard.
It was time for a new challenge for me. Yeah, I was bored of going to the same tournaments. And it is hard. It's tough.
The Stranger Cup, fucking the box aisle. Tournament makes your balls shrink up in your tummy, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, mate. It does. And the training camps were tough. So.
And also, I'm at the butt in, but when you fight as an elite amateur, every fight's a hard fight, isn't it?
Yeah, every single fight. Well, to be honest, I couldn't wait to have a few easier fights.
Yeah, I get that.
I was like, I'm looking forward to this little bit of a blow for him fighting the best all the time, because that had been in that situation from the age of 17 to 25. Spent 8 years of fighting the best in the world at whatever age level or whatever it was, and I was looking forward to a bit of a break from that. And it was time for a new chapter, a new challenge. But because I'd lost in the semi-finals by a stoppage, it like made the interest died down. After the first fight in the Olympics, Frank Warren was writing articles about me and everything, but then he seen me lose by stoppage. Everyone went quiet. So I was like, where is everyone? Yeah, where is everyone? And but anyway, I'd done a turn pro, and at first it was such a buzz for me because it was new style of fighting, 3-minute rounds, training while I was at home, new trainers involved. It was exciting, like anything new is. It was fun again, yeah. So I was happy to have done it.
So you signed with Haymaker. Interesting, because I mean it was David Hay's obviously promotion about David Hay. I heard you say in an interview that they made you feel wanted. Yeah. They made you feel good. And was that important to you to feel like wanted, to have that belief?
Yeah. They undoubtedly, because
you're quite a confidence, like in my experience, as a fan watching you, like I feel like when you were like all sports about confidence, right? Yeah. Like, but especially boxing and especially heavyweight boxing.
Yeah.
I think the rules that apply to boxing, I think heavyweight boxing is magnified more. Everything's just magnified more. And I think you were like a big confidence guy, weren't you?
Yeah.
When you were on it, mate, you were like almost unbeatable.
Definitely. Some people have find confidence, whether they're in shape, whether they've been performing in the gym, they'll have that. They'll pull it out of them somewhere. But a lot of my confidence was based on how well I'd prepared, how well I was performing in the gym, and how well I was performing in my previous fights. And going into my professional career, I'd lost my last fight, and you're only as good as your last fight. And my confidence was like, it was low.
Was it?
It was low. And even though I'd lost to the Olympic champion, and I'd done what I'd done, all that if you put a pile of good stuff done there and bad and wrong things that went wrong there, that'd far outweigh that if you put it on scales. But I'd focus on that, and that was what I was focusing on. But that didn't take long once I turned pro to start getting the the confidence back, and that came from going and testing myself and sparring with like top fighters. That's where it get. And Dave Day was one of them. And they did make me feel wanted. And they were the men, they were the guys to be with at the time. They were the boys, mate. They were cool. They were
different than
thinking outside the box. And it was good to work with them, and they made me feel great really at first. But that didn't last long because the TV deal that they had went. And after my first fight, I had to get a new promoter, which was Frank Maloney. So I had one fight with A-Maker and then was out in the cold again. It was just typical of what was to be ahead for me, just ups and downs.
Mate,
but it's just a good story.
Hand on my heart, this isn't just something because you're here. You're one of the few people that I could watch and enjoy and be happy for, because we weren't the same weight. No chance of us fighting each other. Well, now maybe, but like not back then. 11 stone and 17 stone, and you're a bit older than me. I could be genuinely happy for you.
Yeah.
Whereas like people like Callum Smith and other guys around my way, I was like, fuck, I'm better than them. Or why can't I do that? You know?
Yeah. It's human nature.
Of course.
Yeah.
But an 18-month period, how good was that? Like knocking guys out and being on TV and main eventing here on Sky Sports.
It was great.
Is that the best time of your career, do you think?
You're talking the first 18 months, or you're talking when it was on the ascendancy, people started talking.
From turning pro to Matt Skelton.
Oh yeah, they were the golden days. Like they were the golden days. There was a period between early 2011 to late 2012 where I'd look back as the best days of my boxing career. Like.
So Tom Dallas knocked him out in round 2.
Yeah.
John McDermott, who just beaten Tyson Fury, didn't get the decision, but he booked round 1 for the English title. Yeah. Sam Sexton, my mate, he always to spar with all the time. Yeah. For the British and Commonwealth, round 4. Audley Harrison, the Battle of the Olympians. Yeah. Round 1, you retained your belt. Matt Skelton, round 2. So what I want to ask you is, like, did you begin to believe the hype? Because I had my debut, Kieran Gray, Sheffield. I wasn't really a puncher. I was middleweight. I was fast. I was quick. I was nimble. But I knocked out Kieran Gray. For the 10,000 people, I genuinely thought I was Mike Tyson. Honestly, mate, it took me one fight. So that was on a Saturday night. Steve Bunce called me Monday morning for an interview, and I was like, big time. It was Buncey, mate. I thought I was Mike Tyson. And then the next fight is a 6-round point. It's a bit boring, and I thought, I'm not Mike Tyson. Yeah. So for you, having all those knockout wins against credible opponents, did you begin to believe that you were the heir to the throne?
I don't know whether I truly believed it in my heart of hearts. I always had my own doubts. You know, there was times where I thought I might get found out soon here. You know,
really?
Because not often, but you know, thoughts would creep into my head. I worry in case what if I'm not what they're saying I am. You know.
What was that? What was that? What was the seed of doubt that grew?
Possibly the fact that maybe how my amateur career ended. You know, I had a couple of stoppage defeats in the amateurs, but there was nothing to suggest in the pros that it was going to happen. But I knew what it was like to fight at the highest level. Now, I weren't someone who'd won the ABAs and like started knocking everyone out at British level in the pros and thought, I'll do this to everyone. I knew how good the best were. Do you know what I mean? So I always knew it's going to get tougher, this, and can I do it? I don't know. But at one point, when the momentum was going and I was knocking everyone out, I probably did think a lot of the time, I can go all the way here. But there was always a doubt. And I'm gutted I had them doubts, because if it didn't, things might have been a little bit different.
Who knows, right?
Yeah, and you know, in hindsight, you can say what you want, and you can say what you want, and it can be wrong, but people will soon forget about it and move on to the next thing. You know, within reason, you can say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to win this and that, I'm the next big thing. And I never actually come out and said that, probably because of me modest nature anyway, but I didn't want to put myself on that pedestal in case it went wrong, when really I should have said it, because I could have talked it into existence, or if I would have said it more, I might have believed it more. But I was It was the punch that was there, but it was always the fear of what's going to happen when I get caught here properly, and get carried on the chin, because, I know from my own experience, I've had countless times in sparring where I've been bumped, been hit, buzzed, sometimes off a hard jab, off the wrong person, do you know what I mean? Like a day jab, bump, and you've gone 10-ounce gloves on. And I can talk about this now because I'm not a boxer anymore. But when I was a boxer, I would never disclose any of that. You're like, no. But so that was always that probably creeped in at times. But that was a great time. I look back at that, and sometimes when you look back at certain periods in your life and you get a bit depressed thinking about it. Not like manically depressed, but you get that little pang of regret. Like nostalgia, and I look back and I think, they were great times, but it was just a fleeting moment in my life. It was just, so here we are now. But that was a fantastic time. It's on everyone's lips. It's on everyone's tweets. I was like, starting to get talked about in America. It was looking good. And I don't like talking about it too much because it will make me feel a little bit, and it's only times like this when we're sitting talking openly on a podcast or whatever. But I don't sit talking to me mates about it I
think it's important, like maybe drawing a line after that Max Gatlin fight and looking back previous and just being happy for what that was.
Yeah.
Like enjoying the journey. Obviously the Thompson thing happened next, which unfortunately we're going to cover now. But like that few year period, mate.
Yeah,
18
not many
months.
people even get to experience that. Even people who've gone on.
I had one night. I knocked out Kieran Gray. For my ability and hard work, I had one night where I thought I was David Price. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, let's look at someone like Terry Flanagan, world champion. I bet me bottom dollar that more people knew and watched me than they did him, and spoke about me more, and supported me. And I'm not picking on him. He's great fighter. I'm just using it as an example of and people like him. He won a world title. He didn't get to experience that fanfare.
And hysteria that comes
with it, and everything like that. So I do appreciate it.
Good. I'm glad, mate. I mentioned a couple of times about the boxing life analogy, where sometimes things are going really good, then sometimes you walk onto that punch and your life just changes. Right? It happened to me with my eye. My life literally changed. It happened to me twice in my life. My mum getting ill. My sister called me. I was on squad. Yeah. Just ran around the bowl. My sister rang me saying, "Get home now. Mum's about to die." And it's 5 weeks before the Olympic Games, and she had a big brain aneurysm. And I'm very, very happy that she didn't die. She's still with us today, which I'm very proud of. But at the time, I thought she was going to die. And my life, I see my life oftentimes like pre-mum's aneurysm, post-aneurysm, or pre-Olympics and post-Olympics, because I've wrapped the whole thing together.
The good times before,
Exactly. And same with my eye, like with the boxing, like pre-eye, like boxing me, whatever I am now, wrestler, podcaster, odd guy me. Yeah. And with yourself, like, is it the same that one punch against Tony Thompson changed your course, like, massively? Yeah, how did you, like, mental health wise, like, emotionally, even your family, like, how did that affect you, and what knock-on effect did it have on your wife and your kids?
Yeah, well, I was definitely depressed at the second Tony Thompson fight. So the first one, I had the chance to put it right straight away, so I could focus on that. But we spoke about before what happened with that and everything else going into that fight. But after that one, that was kind of like the final nail in the coffin on the David Price of pre-Tony Thompson. That was it. He was gone. And depression did set in then. Just depression. It should have been a happy time as well. My kids were babies. Everything was good at home with me missus. I just bought a new house that we were moving into, but my heart was broken really because of what had happened in a boxing fight. And it's all like people saying, look, it's only sport, it's your job, blah blah blah. But you know yourself, if you put so much in, your heart and soul has gone into it, and when you feel like this is the end of David Price as we know him, or my career as I know it. It was tough to take, and it took a while, to get out. Even though I started fighting again and had a few wins, I went over to Germany, worked with the Sauerlands, who you done a bit with, didn't you, with the Sauerlands? Went over to Germany, had a few wins. It just didn't feel the same. it just didn't feel the same anymore. But I just kept doing it because I still had something in me saying, I can get back to where that was. I can get back to where it was. But it just never ever did come back to that. Do you know what I mean?
I think we should talk about like you coming back from two fights. A guy who doesn't lose often, a guy that was meant to be the next Klitschko, the next Tyson, the guy who's going to dominate for the next 10 years. I mean, to come back, to suffer 2 defeats and come back, like that takes so much guts, man. That takes a lot of balls, a lot of bollocks to get back up. And when you've had, I've written a couple of things down. Like the commentator, you were 29 years old again in the first Thompson fight, and the commentator said you were in the corner taking a few shots, and he said David Price's career is hanging on by a thread.
Yeah.
And I thought, and I watched it last night thinking, mate, like, I know you're a broadcaster, you got to do your job, but mate, he's a baby. Like 29 is a young man, right? Yeah. As a heavyweight, you're a baby, and you're writing this guy off. Like, how did the negative press affect you? Is that what led to the depression? Is on top of the, like you said, you put your heart and soul.
I avoided it. Just didn't read it. Just because I knew what would be getting said, and this is the first time I've heard that getting said, but it doesn't surprise me. Because I've heard it when other fighters are fighting.
Yeah.
The thing is with boxing, it's funny boxing because it's the only sport where if you lose a couple of times, people start calling for you to pack in. Now, there is such a thing as a boxer who can compete and still entertain the fans, still take it seriously and still do it passionately, but they're not the best. You know what I mean? If everyone was the best, the sport wouldn't exist. There has to be levels in boxing, and that it's the only sport. Other sports, especially even let's look more closely to boxing, MMA. They don't start calling people to retire if they lose a fight, but boxing. I'm guessing that was John Rowland. Now, John Rowland was on Box Nation. I think it might have been John Rowland.
I know what you're going to say now.
Yeah. He
you said you won your debut. Yeah. You won the first round, and he said, He said, "Oh, David Price's round," almost in a surprise fashion.
Surprised it was him. Yeah. So he'd made his mind up on me before I'd even started my career, and even though he might have warmed to me a bit in the better times, as soon as things went wrong, he couldn't wait. He was right all along. Yeah. So his career's on a thread type of thing, but that probably got said a few times, and I just kept persevering. It was a big word for me in the end, perseverance.
Yeah.
It's a really strong thing to have in your arsenal.
But you spoke at the very beginning, and your perseverance paid your house off. Your perseverance, I'm sorry for talking about you. I've read a lot about you. Yeah. But your perseverance got you the success, and they said at the beginning, not the success in terms of the belt, but the success in terms of being a successful father, successful husband, providing a house and roof over their head for your kids. Like, if you said, your exact words were, had you given up when all those experts, all the pundits were saying, "Oh, Dave, give up now, mate, give up now." Right now, you'd be working on a building site as a labourer. Yeah. But you persevered, and you're now here talking to me. Yeah. You have a great career behind you. So you said before the Thompson fight, or maybe after the first one, definitely before the second one, you had a fear of failure. You said you weren't. You said in an interview you weren't scared of getting knocked out or embarrassed, but you had the fear of failure. What about failure were you scared of? Was it the people not caring about David Price the boxer anymore? The phone not ringing anymore?
Possibly how people seeing me. It was probably how people seeing me as a failure, and I'd probably labelled myself as a failure.
Because they said at the beginning you went back to the boxing gym to prove to yourself.
Yeah,
you've always been against it, like Batman. Yeah.
This chimp, and it's the chimp in your head. It's the good devil it's the devil there, and it's the angel on there, and we all have these conversations with ourselves in our heads, and I am my own worst enemy for proving things to myself, and it's never been about proving to other people. Now, I remember my dad saying to me before the second Tony Thompson fight, prove all these wrong, and I said, it's not about proving people wrong for me, it's about proving to myself, and that's just in me, that's how it is. So So yeah, the fear of failure though was probably the thought of going from when I was a kid, I was an apprentice plumbing, heating engineer, and then I've gone into professional boxing, and you're a professional sportsman then, and the thought of having to go back to a 9-to-5 job, I thought that would be a failure, especially considering the position I'd been in, when the reality is 99% of boxers will have to go into a 9-to-5 job again, or do something to make money, because you finish boxing at an average age of 34, 35, you're going to live for another 45 years, hopefully at least. You need to go out and make money, and unless you've made astronomical amounts, you're going to have to do it. But in my silly, immature head, that was in my head. And if I lost that second fight, I had nowhere to go. So that's when the pressure started coming on, and the fear of failure. And fear of failure is fear anyway. It's all fear. Fear got the better of me, and it was fearing failing at what I'd set out to do. And you know, I let go of that later on, and felt like a new man.
Yeah, mate, you say that hits hard, because when I hurt my eye, I'm not much of a crier. I don't cry much. Not saying crying's a bad thing. I don't do it very often. And then when I hurt my eye, then the day or two later, my physio came around my house. He was very close with him. I'd had a lot of injuries before, shoulders and Achilles, and he'd bandaged me back up numerous times. But he couldn't fix this one. It was an eye thing, right? He comes around, my wife is there, my girlfriend at the time, and then I was crying, and I don't cry often, so I knew I was in a bad place. And I said, and I'd moved to London at this point from Lowestoft, a little town where I'm from in East Anglia. And I said, I don't want to move back. If I can't fight, I've got to move back. I've got to move back and get a normal job. I don't want to do that. I've got half an A level.
That's all right.
I've got no qualifications. I don't want to move back. And at the time, I thought, and what I'd done, and it sounds like the same with you as well. Like what I'd done, the worst thing I'd done, I become Anthony Ogogo, the boxer. And boxing was my identity. It was my life. It was everything to me. And if that goes, like I go, and you know, I haven't got children yet. If I do have children, if they box, then happy days. But I'll make them be whatever my kids are called. Like I should have been Anthony Ogogo, and that's who I am. Yeah. And boxing is what I do. It's not who I am.
Yeah, exactly.
Separate that, you're mentally.
I get it totally. Yeah, and that's where I feel now, because you can tell me these things, what John Rowland said, or people can say, Pricey, you was a shit boxer. And I'll go, okay, but I'm not a boxer anymore. That's fine. You know, say what you want, but when I was a boxer, I took it personally because it was my identity, and I've done that now. I've let the boxer go. But what you're saying there about you know, when your eye went and you was like, I don't want to go back and get a job. It's a really daunting prospect for a professional sportsman to reach that crossroads and then go, what am I going to do now? It's scary. It's scary. It's scarier than any fight, because you've got your whole life ahead of you. You've spent your best years chasing your dream, which is to become a world champion or go to the Olympics. So you spent, well, not your best years, but let's say your most energetic years, your 20s. You're full of energy. You're full of life, and then you're like, you've spent them chasing the dream. That dream faded, and now what? And it's boxing's great, by the way, and it saves a lot of people. But for some people, they might look back. I said this last week, and they might look back and go, "Wow, did I make the right choice to chase this dream?" Do you know what I mean? But you can't have any regrets, of course. You know, obviously. But it's a daunting prospect, and I'm just made up. I'm proud of you, by the way, that you've diversified, and I think it's amazing what you've done. By the way, to go into another combat sport, but you was into your wrestling anyway, weren't you? You was a fan of wrestling, and you're going to be a massive success at it. And I really, honestly, mate, massive respect, because what happened to you with that eye, you could have just went into a hole and never come out of it. You know, you could have been like the next Kirkland Lang. You know, did you see how his life ends up on a park bench and things like that? You could have done that, and people could have gone, I can see why, but you haven't. So it's inspirational, mate. It really is.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Thank you. To wrap up, I've got 2 questions. One, are you happy?
Oh yeah. I'm content. I'm content. Yeah, I'm happy. And one of the reasons is because I've transitioned into normal life. I was saying before, I'm running a business and I've just got something to occupy my mind constantly. So that's one of the struggles for ex-athletes, boxers in particular, is finding things to do with the time and swallowing the pride and going, right, I've got to go back to work. You know, I'm going in people's homes. I'm knocking at people's houses to say, come to measure up to do a job on your boiler and this and that. And they're like, double take. You know, and there is times where I'm having to do shitty little jobs and I do think, fucking hell, lad, he was fighting on Sky Sports box office 2 years ago. What's happened here? And I'm like moving a couch in like a bit of a rough flat somewhere for whatever reason. And I was laughing about it with the lads I was with, but you know, that's okay. You know,
I respect that so
much. Yeah,
I've
got to, yeah,
that.
because I'm just a human at the end of the day, and I've got to go out and do what I can to keep moving forward in life. So I am happy. I'm happily married. I'm happy. My kids are healthy. So life's good. Yeah, can't complain.
Fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
That's so good to hear.
Yeah, it's what it's all about. It's
all
all that matters.
Yeah.
You know, is your happiness. You know, so I'm happier now than at most points in my professional career because there's no pressure anymore. There's no, you know yourself how hard it is as well physically. The training would have an effect on my mood because I'd be that tired. My mood would be low and I'd just be low all the time. And when I look back, I'm like, wow, I've got energy now. I'm not sleeping of a day much. I'm just different.
I don't want to be a dick, mate. I don't want to be a dick, but you were lucky because you didn't have to make a weight. Imagine making a weight as well. You know?
If I'd have had to make the weight, I don't know whether it would have lasted, to be honest, because it was hard enough without making the weight for me. But making the weight, it's so much respect for all you who had to do it, and I get why when it ends, you just enjoy food.
Of course, yeah.
Like, you know, you just go over the other scale, the other end of the scale with it, don't you? So I get it.
And the final question, mate, and if you want, I'll brought some whiskey to have a little toast to your career.
Yeah.
A tiny little bit.
Say no to that. What is it? Jack Daniels?
A little bit Jack Daniels. And the final, the last little question, mate, is
Yeah.
Is that green?
Nice little crystal glass, eh?
I bought it from home.
Yeah, that'll do.
I'll turn you got your word later.
I've never done this on a podcast before, but I have thought of doing it on a podcast.
Mate, to an amazing career.
Cheers, mate.
Last question. If you could do it all again, right? You got the red pill and the blue pill.
Yeah.
Go back. You're 14 years old. You're about to walk into the boxing gym again. The red pill. You've seen all this happen. You go back. You take the pill. You live it all exactly the same. Nothing changes. All the losses, or the upsets, or the heartache, all the great things as well. You do all, and we end up here in what's it? So you're in 24 years later, we're here. Or you take the other pill, whatever colour I said, and then you don't go into the boxing gym that day. You walk off and live a different life. What do you do?
Which one was the red pill? The boxing one?
100%
the red.
The boxing one?
The boxing one. I've got no regrets at all, mate. It's given me everything I've got in my life. And when I say that, I don't mean things or stuff. I mean everything I've got as I am, as a man. It's made me the man I am. 100%. Obviously, I've got the upbringing I had has made me the person I am and things like that. But the man I am, me morals, me beliefs, boxing's had a big part to play in it because of what it's taught me. You know, what it's taught me over the years. You know, when I first started going in the England training camps, I was like 17. Big talk. We weren't happy with myself, how I looked and how I felt, and I got taught on there about just got told off for me manners. Now, just being respectful to everyone, saying please, thank you, and because I'd had that from my own mum and dad and things like that, but I was just a little bit angry. I was a teenager. I hated being a teenager. And Ian Irwin collared me, and like that was one little thing I remember, and like things like that stuck in my head, and they've just stayed with me now, obviously, and it'd have been like that anyway. But boxing's just been great. Wouldn't change any of it. Cheers.
Cheers, mate.
Cheers, pal.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.
Best.
I think you can agree that was an amazing episode, a fantastic episode. David Price left loads of life lessons in the episode. I took so much from it. For me, my takeaway for me was what success is. Like, what does success mean? And I think it's very subjective, isn't it? I mean, like, David Price was supposed to become the world heavyweight champion, and everyone thought he was gonna earn tens of millions of pounds and be where Tyson Fury and maybe where Anthony Joshua is now, but it didn't quite work out for him. But does that mean his career was a failure? I mean, I don't think so. He's a guy, and I've learned this from talking to Tony Jeffries. Like, he's got an Olympic medal. He won medals all around the world. He has a wealth of experience from representing his city, Liverpool, and his country, England and Great Britain, that he did so proudly. He got experiences that most people could only ever dream of. I think, and I've said this before, and I learned this from Tony Jeffries, like, the things you look at, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And that's a quote I'm going to be saying a lot over the course of this series and future series, because life is all about perspective. And yes, David Price never got to the heady heights that maybe his talent could have got him to, or many people thought he was going to get to, but nobody can take away the amazing career that man had. Dave, thank you, mate. It was an absolute privilege having you on, and I hope all the lovely listeners have learned so much from your story. Thank you so much. But as you know, here at the Getting Back Up podcast, every single week I've got a special guest on telling their story for the benefit of you. And next week is no different. Next week I have got Scott Oakley on the podcast. Now, who is Scott? Some of you may know Scott, some of you might not know Scott. Scott, among many things, is one of my acting coaches. He is the most lovely, inspiring man I've met in my entire life. He's a very successful, accomplished working actor and acting teacher. He's a legend in the truest form of the word. Now, Scott, be ready for this one, okay? It's an emotional one. Scott talks about his difficult upbringing, suffering abuse, many different forms in his young life. Scott talks about being a bounty hunter. Yeah, I could not believe it. He said it once in acting class, one of my first acting classes, that he used to be a bounty hunter, and I thought he was doing a bit. I genuinely thought he was like breaking off into some improv, not thinking bounty hunting is a thing nowadays, but it is. He did it for a long time, very successful career as a bounty hunter before he fell back in love with acting. It's an amazing story. Just, you've got to listen to it. You're gonna learn so much, like I did. Be ready for with the tissues, because it's a bit of a tearjerker. So I'll give you a heads up on that one. So, guys, thank you so much for being with me again today and listen to another episode. Please like, please subscribe, please leave a review, please share this podcast with anybody that you think is going to benefit. It really does help us go a long way. I really enjoy doing these podcasts, but I need your support to keep doing them. So please get involved and join the growing army that is the Getting Back Up subscribers and listeners. Remember, life gets tough sometimes. You're gonna fall down. It's going to happen. When you do find yourself lying flat back on the metaphorical canvas of life, remember, you've only got one choice, and that's to get back up. Guys, I'll see you next week.